Thanks, David, for taking a few minutes to talk to us today. First question I've got for you is about Hazelwood, Victoria's and Australia's dirtiest coal-fired power station. Hazelwood is responsible for 15% of Victorian greenhouse gas pollution and 3% of Australia's total emissions. It uses 27 billion litres of water per year and is the single highest emitter of dioxins in Australia. Do you have any messages for our leaders who have the power to replace Hazelwood?
Yes, I would say shut her down. I mean, it's clear from the health of the population. I'm sure there's a lot of mercury coming out of that as well. And the health of the planet. You got to shut it down. I'm always astounded that I keep hearing Australians say, well, yeah, but we're special. You know, at Kyoto in 1997, Australia was the only industrialized country that was given special dispensation not to have to reduce below 1990 levels. And that's because the Australian delegation just whinged and said, oh, we're a special country, we can't possibly meet it, we depend on coal. What a bunch of nonsense. Every time I come here, I get so angry. Canadians would kill for what you guys have here. It's called sunlight. Yeah. And I look very hard to see a solar panel anywhere. You know, in this country, none of your hot water should be heated by electricity. It should be heated by the sun. Every house should carry solar panels. And there's absolutely no reason why a coal burning plant couldn't be shut down.
Have you actually started that process in Canada?
Pardon me?
Is that process begun in Canada?
What process?
Closing down of power stations.
We have the industrial heart of Canada as a province called Ontario. And the current Premier of Ontario was elected on the promise to shut down all of its coal-bearing plants. Now it's turned out that it's not as easy as he thought. And he's pushed the date back, I think, by 2 years. But they should be phased out within the next 2 years. That's a huge thing. Now, there's a problem is that Ontario also is the major province using nuclear. And we want it, and what we did get is him to promise he was going to expand the nuclear facilities. We got him to stop that and showed that that's just crazy. He now has invoked the German feed-in tariff. That is, what you do is every bit of solar wind energy, you get a very high premium for that. And it's, guess what? It's stimulating the whole solar panel and wind industry in Ontario because of that feed-in tariff.
Those who govern our country are clearly not responding to the challenges of climate change in a manner that reflects the urgency of the situation. Do you think there's a place for non-violent direct action in challenging the legitimacy of governments and enabling individuals to demonstrate their concerns?
Well, I think that there are going to be increasingly urgent demonstrations. I certainly know in Canada, for example, there's much talk of direct action to shut down the Alberta tar sands, which are the dirtiest source of oil that we've got on the planet. And people are feeling very, very frustrated because we have a petro state now that depends on those revenues. But I would say in a country like Australia, you have a democracy. You have I mean, everybody here has to vote. We don't have that in Canada. And because of that, it seems to me that if that is what the public perceives as important, you can put that on the agenda and make those politicians do what you want. But it depends on practicing democracy. In Canada, half of the population doesn't bother to vote. And I say, we don't have a democracy any longer. If you're going to subscribe to the idea of a democracy, you've got to get out and be active in the political process.
Breaze is a community climate action group which was not in existence on your last trip to Ballarat. After almost 4 years, we have grown to 600 financial members. We've just hit 2,000 subscribers. We employ over 10 staff plus contractors. We've installed over 440 kilowatts of solar on domestic and school roofs. connected people in the community and educated many on sustainability issues. We've achieved a lot so far, but no doubt there's a tough slog ahead on our goal to achieve zero emissions in Ballarat by 2020. Do you have any words of encouragement for the organisation and its members as we move forward?
Well, all I can say is that the difficulty for pioneers is that you're breaking new ground and you have to overcome public resistance. You know, we get into ruts, we get into using things a certain way, and it becomes very difficult to break out. I congratulate Breaze for even existing, and let me tell you, I guarantee you, in 20 years, people will look back and say, thank God you were there. But it's very, very difficult, and it's all about mindset that you have to overcome. What you need is a government that is going to give the people that want to install your units, to give them a break, to encourage that, and I think that will come. But you've got to hang in there.
There's a community movement building in Australia. It's called the 100% Renewable campaign, with well over 100 climate action groups on board. People in communities around Australia have been out in their neighbourhoods informing residents that the current state of electricity is about, and inspiring them with the vision of an Australia powered by 100% renewable energy. Soon, locals will be meeting with their MPs or local members for Parliament, informing them of their community's views on the surveys they've conducted. This is one of the first steps in calling for a national feed-in tariff for small and large-scale renewable energy projects, an important step on the way to 100% renewable energy. Do you have any words of support for 100% renewable energy campaign and its campaigners?
I was in Germany doing a program on renewable energy when I heard the announcement that Al Gore had called for 100% renewable electricity in 10 years. I was electrified, no pun intended. I was absolutely ecstatic, because that's the kind of big call that we need. You need that call to be made at the federal level, I think, and you've got to work towards that. But I applaud the goal of 100% renewable. That's the only way we can go in the future, if we're serious about having a future. It's just crazy that people are talking about nuclear, for example. How can you have a truly sustainable energy future if you're dealing with a finite resource? It's going to run out, just like oil. So just on the basis of there being finite, nuclear and fossil fuels are not the way to go. And then using them creates problems at the end. So you get a double whammy. So we've got to go renewable electricity as quickly as possible.
You must hear so many wonderful good news stories. What's the most inspiring story you've heard in regards to communities tackling climate change recently?
Gee, there are good news. I wrote a whole book called Good News for a Change. And at the time that we wrote that book, I felt we could have written 4 or 5 books. We now have updated that with another book called More Good News. And there is lots and lots of stuff occurring at the local level. That's where the action is really taking place. There are I'm not sure whether it's the G80, or I'm not sure how many cities, but there's an organization that is a global organization driving cities to become sustainable. And it's very exciting to me to see what's going on. We've now elected an absolutely green city council in Vancouver. Vancouver is a small city of about 1.5 million people in the greater Vancouver area, but they're aiming to be the greenest city in the world by 2020. And the mayor has done a remarkable job. First thing he did was to set up a committee. I happen to be on that committee, but it was people with impeccable green credentials. And then they said, look, what is possible for a city like Vancouver? We got hundreds and hundreds of proposals, of which dozens are already out there in place. And I think it's very, very exciting, because Vancouver isn't unique. And I said to the mayor, even if we become the greenest city by 2020, believe me, there are going to be other cities that are going to surpass us, and that's all the better. You know, let's keep going. It's very exciting. The whole LEED program for efficient buildings, you know, the LED standards for building. That has just taken off in green building like you wouldn't believe. So there are lots of things happening at the local level.
We all need a positive vision to work towards. Let's be ambitious and say that in 10 years' time, the human race has rediscovered its place in the world and we are living healthier, happier lives with less impact on nature's systems and resources. Can you describe what a perfect day would be like for you?
Well, first of all, I think 10 years it's impossible. It is an impossible dream. And sadly, I think that the urgency of the crisis demands that we get something like an 80% reduction in fossil fuel use within 10 or 20 years. We're not going to make it. There are people like Clive Hamilton in Canberra who's just written a book, Requiem for a Species. Well, guess what species it's a requiem for? It's us. And he says it's too late. And there are a number of people that are already saying that. So there's just no question the urgency is there. If we were to achieve the world I dream of, and I'm going to describe this in my speech, it would be one where you can't wait to get out on the street because that's where we live, work, and play in our own local neighborhood. No need for cars. Where every road and building captures every bit of the sunlight falling on it and converts it into electricity. Where all of the water falling on our buildings is captured and used. Where our roofs all grow food. Our cities are filled with orchards of fruit and nut trees, community gardens where we celebrate the seasons through the plants that are coming on stream during the year, where we have industrial systems in which there is no waste because they're designed to imitate nature, where one organism's waste is another organism's opportunity. It would be a place where the economic system is geared to and subservient to nature's productivity, and where nature's services are an integral part of our current economic system. That's a kind of world that I would like to see.
What are some steps that individuals can take towards achieving that goal?
There are lots of things. If you go to my foundation's website, davidsuzuki.org, we call it the Nature Challenge. These are the 10 most effective things individuals can do to reduce their ecological footprint. We focus on three areas where we each have the biggest impact. That's how we move, transportation, where we live, housing, and what we eat, food. And looking at that, there's very simple suggestions. For example, don't eat meat one day a week. Give up your car, leave it at home one day a week. Make your house 10% more efficient in electricity use. You'll make money. So these are very, very simple. If every Australian did that, it would have a very significant reduction in our footprint. But it will not get us off the road that's heading to hitting a brick wall. What it will do is slow it down so that we're not going as fast, because right now we need time. We need time to make the big decisions and the big changes that are going to be needed by government, and that's where we have to get our government on track. They have two very powerful tools to affect human behavior. They can regulate, pass laws, and they can use taxation. Use taxation to reduce the bad things, and give back off taxation for the things that we want to encourage, like people's salaries, like the building of infrastructure for a green future. Governments have to use taxation very, very strongly to discourage the things we don't want, encourage the things we want. And they've got to pass laws. Now the corporate areas have been fighting like mad against any fiddling around with taxation. Just get taxes off their backs. Corporate sector is looking to prevent any regulation, and we've got to demand that